In the previous section of this course, we talked about, or at least we began to talk about, building calculations within Excel. And we saw just a simple little calculation. We were able to do some addition as far as referencing cells. We were able to take a cell reference, such as B4, and then add that to cell reference B5. Then add that to B6 and B7 and B8. We were able to do some addition. You've got all your mathematical operators available to you. You've got the addition symbol, you got minus, subtraction, you got multiplication, you got division, you got your exponent, you got all those various operators that you can utilize to perform arithmetic type calculations. Math, right? Well, built into the Excel application, the nice people at Microsoft have built several functions that we can then utilize to perform calculations. So that's what we're going to take a look at next year. And I've created this super slick little PowerPoint presentation to talk a little bit about what Excel functions are, how we can utilize them to help us become more efficient as we work with our data inside of Excel. So let's jump into the PowerPoint here. And I'm going to provide this as a download resource so you can take this PowerPoint and do whatever you like with it. So first off, an Excel function. Really, all an Excel function is a predefined calculation. That's it. Now, the nice people at Microsoft have built a few hundred different functions for us to use. These predefined little packages that'll do some type of calculation. Whether it's summing up a range of cells, it's finding an average within a range of cells, it's looking up information based on criteria that we give the application. It could be a whole slew of things. I want to be able to find my house payment or the next car that I buy. How much am I going to pay for that monthly? Well, built into Excel, they have a function called PMT, or the payment function, that will do that for you. Now, in order for us to utilize a function, we need to really understand what the function is and what are the different pieces of a function. So let me give you an example here. So this is going to be one of the first functions that we see inside of this course. This is the most common function that is used worldwide within Excel. This is the sum function. So here's an example, and this is taken right from the exercise file from the monthly budget worksheet that we're creating together as a group. So the sum function, as you can see here, I want to build a sum up. I want to add up a range of cells. Well, in order for me to do that, we can do it like we did earlier, where I say equals this cell plus 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 this, right? I can do that and do that and do that. What if you have thousands of records and you want to add up, you want to sum up all of that data? That could take forever, right? Typing that out like we did earlier. Well, built into Excel, we got the sum function that'll streamline those efforts. Now, I want to break down functions in general. There's really three different pieces that we use as we build out an Excel function. Now, we just saw a quick preview of the sum function, but let's now break it down into its three different pieces. The first thing, and we've actually already seen this, every calculation, from the simplest calculation to the most absurd, complex, uber huge, dynamic, whatever, huge function, right, or calculation, they all start with the same thing. From the most basic to the most complex, they all start with the equal sign. Now, the next step, as far as using a function, you then need to designate or denote which function you want to use. For example, if I want to sum up a range of cells, I'll say equals, and I'll bring in the sum function. That's its name, sum, S-U-M. If I want to find the average of a range of cells, I'll say equals average. That's it. Now, the thing about learning functions, it's just that. You got to learn the functions. We got to know that, oh, there's a sum function. There's an average function. There's a function for looking up information. There's a function for finding the minimum value from a range of cells or the maximum value from a range of cells. We got to learn what the functions are. But once you got that down, then there's one more piece. We got to bring in the function arguments or the parameters that that function needs. So let me give you an example of a complete function here. So this is what we were looking at earlier. It's got all three pieces. It's got the equal sign. Remember, that's a given. You always do that with any type of calculation. Then you got the function name. In this case, you got sum. And then the sum function specifically, within the parentheses, needs to know the range of cells that you want to sum up. In this case, equal sum. Let's sum up cells B4 through B8. And as far as functions are concerned, when you deal with a range of cells, to say through, like B4 through B8, we use the colon character. B4 colon B8. That's your through. That's your range of cells. So that's really the three pieces. Equals, the function name, and any arguments or parameters that that function needs in order for it to do its job. Remember, these functions, they're predefined. The nice people at Microsoft built them. They determined how we use them and what types of data it needs to do its job. That's where the arguments come into play. Now, the next thing that I want to bring your attention to, and we're going to get very familiar with this window. This is called the function arguments window. This is a little window built into the Excel application that's going to assist us in utilizing these functions, especially when you're just starting out utilizing functions, whether it's the sum function or something more complex like index and match or VLOOKUP or some other more complex function. You're going to want some help. So this function argument window is going to come in very handy because it'll kind of take your hand and walk you through the process and explain each step to you. So you can find this window by going to the little FX button, which is right next door to the formula bar towards the top of your window within Excel. You'll see just a little button up there. It'll say FX on it. You click on it and you can go find your functions, and then eventually you'll bring it into the arguments for that specific function. Now here, I'm looking at the arguments for the sum function. You can see number 1 and number 2 there. Well, the number 1 and number 2, they're just expecting a range of cells. Well, you want to sum, what is it that you want to sum? So here I just said I want to sum B4 through, remember colon, through B8. Now, the nice thing about this window is, again, it kind of takes your hand, walks you through the process. They give you some great information. Like here, they're going to tell you what the function does. Might be brief. Here it just says, hey, the sum function, it adds up all the numbers in a range of cells. Great. The next thing it tells you is, well, what do those arguments mean? What is number 1? What is number 2? Well, it says number 1, number 2, and so on. You can have between 1 and 255 numbers to sum, or ranges of cells that you can sum up. 255, that's quite a bit. It's also, down in the lower left-hand corner of the window, is a nice little link that'll jump you out to a Microsoft page that'll give you some help about the active function. So in this case, if I click that link, help on this function in the lower left, it'll take me to a Microsoft page that talks all about the sum function. Super slick, very helpful. So this is your arguments window. Again, Excel's got all sorts of functions in there. As you're learning them, I highly suggest not only going through this course and learning the functions, I'm going to walk you through them, but read through the window. Get an idea of what they're all about and potentially what you're going to be using them for and what you could use them for. Now, like I mentioned, there are loads of functions inside of Excel. By the last number that I read, as of the 2013 edition, we've actually a few versions later, there were 461 functions built into the Excel application. That's quite a bit. Then Microsoft adds functions, they remove functions, and typically when they remove a function, they replace it with something else. Something that's more streamlined, more efficient, does more for you, is more accessible, those types of things. But there are loads of functions inside of Excel. Now here, this is a part of the ribbon inside the Excel interface. This is the Formulas tab. You'll find the Formulas tab there at the top of your screen. Now here, they give you what's called the function library, essentially a bunch of little books where you can go find all these various functions. And we're going to take a look at this. We're going to become familiar with it and how you can find the various functions that live inside of your copy of Excel. All right, so get ready for this. I'm excited. I love functions. Any way that's going to save me time and help me become more efficient as I'm performing calculations, great. Let's get in there. First, we're going to start out with some more basic type functions like sum, min, max, average, count, those types of things. And as you progress later and later inside of this course, we're going to see more complex, more advanced, those larger uber dynamic functions that I spoke about earlier. All right, get ready for it. Let's jump into the next lecture.